My dad bought himself a new truck. It's the 1984 F-150. This truck originated from Maryland, so it has no rust. Well, it has surface rust in a lot of areas, but not the body rot that we usually see in New England. It's got the straight 6 motor. It's got the 4-speed manual. We just got finished taking all the trim off. It had aluminum trim all around, and we're getting ready to wheel it over to the body shop across the road and have it painted. I'm just going to get a complete paint job in the original blue, which is this. This has been painted before. The paint is in rough shape, but you can see that it didn't really mask things off very well. It's healing in some areas. But the body is straight. It's got a few dings and dents here and there, but otherwise straight. But I love this thing. It's got a... This is a simulated cloth. This is actually vinyl. And bench seat. You don't see that anymore for safety reasons mostly. Nice long throw, 4-speed manual. I think the only factory option this truck actually had was the AM/FM radio, which has been replaced with an aftermarket. The glove box door is missing, but those are easy to find. We took the interior, we took the floor out. We're going to either replace it with a new rubber floor, which is what it has, or just clean up the original one. But you can see there's no rust here. There's some surface rust just forming, but we're sandblasting all that away. Yeah, there's a little bit of crustiness over here. I just got finished unbolting the bed. Here's the thing. These bolts, these are the original bed mount bolts, and in New England they would not have lasted 34 years like they have here. I mean, they're starting to rust away. These were actually from the front part of the bed, and these are from the back. But they came off without a hitch. Really, all the trim that is bolted to the body, the nuts were in pretty good shape. A little bit of rust on them, but not rotted or anything. Which again, New England, that is not something we usually see here. This is the worst. This is the absolute worst of the body rot, and this is going to get cut out and a new piece welded in place. Got the mirrors off, front end, fender liners are taken out, so you can see this engine bay. I mean, you could actually sit in this engine bay while you're tuning the carburetor. So yeah, it's got I think it's a 2-barrel carburetor. I believe it's the original carb for the truck. It's got the electronic idle control, which seems to work. The air conditioner that was added, this is a third-party or aftermarket air conditioner. It was done by this company here, Clinton, Maryland. So yeah, so that was added, but they took the condenser out for some reason, and so we're going to just take the rest of the AC out of it and leave it out. There's no need to have it in this truck. My dad will just use it to go back and forth to work. It's like a 3-mile drive total. So yeah, so we got to clean up some of the wiring once we get it all back together again. And there's a little bit of, look at that, that's the AC clutch wire. Look at that, come on, really. But what's nice is it still has a lot of the factory stamps on it. Like that would be like maybe a shift number. And there's all those little stamps are still there. It's still got the tag on the motor and the valve cover. So plans are we're going to pull the motor out. We're going to refresh the motor. Probably new timing gears. This uses timing gears. There's no chain or belt in this. This is a push rod motor. But all new gaskets, all new seals. It has a massive intake and exhaust leak over here. The brake booster leaks. You can hear it hissing inside the cab when it runs. But it runs. It actually runs pretty well once it warms up. Power steering still works, but leaks like a sieve, so that's all going to be. Power steering box needs to be resealed. Maybe the lines need to be replaced too. I mean, it just needs typical things a 34-year-old vehicle will need. Brake lines are still good. I don't think there's any that really warrant replacement at this point. But we're going to do a new brake booster, master cylinder. Let's take a look in the, let's get in the cab here. Yeah, so here's some rust. This is, I already started sandblasting this, but there's some rust in the floorboard. But you look at that floorboard, I mean, it looks great. So you figure that all cleaned up, painted with some kind of a treatment, you know, that'll make it nice again. Door panel had to come off. I forget why. But it's got the original door panels and everything else. That's not a factory speaker, I'm pretty sure. So those speakers will be probably replaced. We'll try to find a decent CD, AM/FM CD in there and pop that in. But it's got a, so far as we know, it's got 131,000 miles on it. As far as we know. It's only it goes up to 999,999 miles. Then it rolls over. It doesn't have 300,000 miles. It has 131,000. It could very well have 31, but the wear and tear on the interior does not indicate that. More than likely, it's 131. Oh, you know what? I think my dad saw the Carfax on this, and he did confirm that it had been rolled over at least once. The odometer. So. Anyway, so yeah, I mean this is a pretty decent little rig, but you can see how base model vehicles were back in the 80s and before. I mean, up until the 90s, I think you could still buy a truck like this. You've got vinyl seats, AM/FM radio, no headliner at all. Never had one. You know, you've got, of course, power brakes, power steering, but manual windows, manual locks, no AC, manual trans, rubber floor, two-wheel drive. You just can't buy a vehicle like this anymore. No airbags, no anti-lock brakes. Yeah, it does have the factory slide window though, which is kind of a nice feature. It should be cleaned and lubricated maybe. But you can tell it's factory. It's got car-like glass in it, so that's a genuine Ford rear window. Coat hooks in the back. There's one right there. Little coat hook. That's it. That's. So this is similar to a truck that my dad and actually my grandfather bought back when I was a little kid, and he had the same basic truck, but his was a slightly higher trim package, and. I think it had an automatic transmission. My dad ended up with that truck when I was about 10, maybe. And he used it for a couple of years, and he loved that truck. I used to start it up every morning. I'd have to start it up and wait a few minutes, and then kick the the idle down. Old carbureted engines, that's kind of what you had to do. So it would start at a high idle, and then once the engine warmed up, you'd have to hit the throttle really fast, and it would drop the idle down, disengage the idle lock. Once the bimetallic spring was enough to, once it heated up enough, you could do that. Anyway, let's take a look underneath. Oh, the seat's not folded now. So what I did today, and it took me a little bit, but I had to unbolt the bed so the bed can be lifted right off. So when we get it painted, we're also going to scrape the frame down and treat it with a probably POR 15, and then we're going to put kind of a rust proofing on there, and then maybe spray everything down with some fluid film, all the stuff that doesn't get painted. But the frame is solid. There's no flaky rust anywhere. Now this thing had been Z-barded. It was a rust-proofing material that was popular back in the 1980s and possibly even in the 70s. And Z-bart is like a rubberized coating that allegedly would prevent rust. What they would do is they would drill holes all around the body, and they would spray the stuff in with an air hose, and you can actually see some of it in. It actually is still present in the cab. And yeah, this is something that a dealer would do, and you can actually see the coating. It's like a rubberized material. In fact, that's what's in my fingernails. What this stuff would do is it would allegedly ward off rust. But what the reality was is that this coating oftentimes promoted rust because it would be sprayed while there was still moisture in the air hose, and it would actually trap moisture rather than repel it. So the moisture that was present in the airline during the application process would remain there sealed forever and until it rusted. So this stuff was really not a good idea. But it actually did preserve some of the metal in this truck and prevented it from mild rust, which was kind of helpful. But all that stuff on the frame that's flaking off, that's the Z-Bart coating, the undercoating that they added. This stuff right here, I think that's what this is. That could be factory too, but we'll just brush all that off, get all the loose stuff off the frame, and then we're going to spray it or treat it with POR. Oh, look, a squirrel. Anyway, so that's that. This is going to be a pretty nice little vehicle. The windshield's been replaced, and what we found is that it's actually debonding from the windshield surround. So we're going to pull the windshield off. There's nothing holding it on really right now. So we're going to pull the windshield off and clean up the lip all the way around, treat it nicely, and then we're going to have a new one put in. The windshield actually cracked while my dad was starting to remove it, unfortunately. We have all the trim except for one piece that got damaged by the previous owner. So yeah, that's what it looked like. But yeah, this was like the Ultra Base model. So there's nothing holding this bed on. I can lift it right up. So we're going to probably get a couple of guys over here and we'll lift it off the frame, and then we're going to proceed to clean up the rest of it. He wants to keep the wheels. These are American Racing so-called wagon wheels, and these were very popular back in the 1980s. I remember when I was a kid, these things were on everything. They used these on trailers and campers and trucks and even some cars. But what we're going to do is sandblast them and paint them white again, rather than buy new ones, and then replace the center caps, and then add some chrome trim rings, and that'll kind of dress it up a little bit. My family isn't big on hideously ugly alloy wheels that don't really add any value to the vehicle. So yeah, we're going to keep it a straight 6. There's nothing wrong with this engine internally. It runs okay. It just needs a quick refresh, some gaskets, timing, that kind of stuff. What else can I tell you? These bumpers are probably not original. The originals would have likely rusted away by now. There is some scratching to the chrome, unfortunately. We're going to replace all the exterior lighting. The taillights are pretty badly hazed up. Let's take a look at those. Yeah, the taillights are in rough shape. See, they didn't even take them off when they painted it the last time. It's unfortunate. But yeah, they're kind of weather beaten. We'll replace those. They're short money. Probably replace a couple of those bed bolts. Hopefully, when my dad gets tired of this thing, I'll get to buy it from him. I really like it. I'm gonna hopefully do the bed in one of those sprayable bed liners, and that's what would be nice. Probably want to sandblast it first, get all the rust off, treat it with like a primer or something, and then put the bed liner in. And he's been going around and straightening out dents using homemade wooden body bucks. And here's one that he worked on. It was pretty bad. This was caved in. He straightened that out. That looks pretty good. And I actually added 1 or 2 dents to the body trying to pull the trim off. Whoops. Yeah. Anywho, that's it. 84 Ford F-150. And this Jeep that he actually bought this Jeep as a project vehicle, and he's going to sell it back to the guy he bought it from, and put all of his attention into this. This is a nice old Jeep. It's a 2000. It's a salvaged vehicle. It was a theft recovery. Runs beautifully. It's actually another fairly rust-free vehicle, but it desperately needs a paint job. There's no rust anywhere on this vehicle, but it's got issues, and it's all fixable. So again, he sold it to the guy he bought it from, got his money back. He's gonna, yeah. But anyway, thank you for watching.